The streetlights in Willow Creek flickered like tired stars, casting pools of yellow light onto the cracked sidewalks. Grace gripped the steering wheel of her silver Toyota Camry, the hum of the engine her only companion in the silence of 9:30 p.m. At 58, she was a shadow in her own story, a retired school secretary now driving for Uber, ferrying strangers through the suburbs of a city that seemed to shrink with each passing year. Her phone, propped up on the dashboard, glowed with the Uber app, but there were no messages from her children. Mark in Seattle, Lisa in Chicago. They were grown, living their own lives, and Grace was left with glimpses of her grandchildren through Instagram, their distant smiles captured in late-night scrolls, her heart aching with longing. Divorced for 10 years, with her ex-husband remarried and living in Florida, she now lived in a one-bedroom apartment with a sagging sofa and a collection of coffee mugs that felt like the only trace she'd left on the world. That night, October's air carried a biting chill, sneaking through the car's vents. Grace adjusted her glasses, her gray hair pulled into a loose bun, and let out a quiet sigh. She drove for Uber to escape the emptiness, to avoid facing the walls of her apartment that seemed to close in after dark. But loneliness was a loyal passenger, always there. In the rearview mirror, she caught her tired eyes and wondered when she'd stopped recognizing herself. A notification ping pulled her from her thoughts. A new ride. 2 passengers. Pick up at Maple Grove Apartments, a brick complex where young families and professionals lived. Grace tapped accept and pulled away, her tires crunching over dry leaves. As she drove, memories of her own youth surfaced, sneaking out to bonfires by the creek, laughing with friends, the illusion of being untouchable. Those memories felt like they belonged to someone else now, faded like the old Polaroids tucked away in her dresser. At Maple Grove, 2 girls waited under the awning of Building C, lit by the glow of their phones. They looked about 16, wearing baggy jeans and cropped sweatshirts, backpacks slung over their shoulders. Grace pulled up and lowered the window. "Emma?" she asked. "Yep. That's me," replied the shorter one with long, straight brown hair, nodding while typing on her phone. Her friend Lila was taller, with blonde curls and a nose piercing. Their voices buzzed with excitement. They climbed into the back seat, trailing sweet perfume and the electric energy of adolescence. Grace confirmed the destination. A vague address on the edge of town, near the old industrial park. Odd, she thought, but she'd seen stranger drop-offs. As soon as the car started moving, the girls opened their backpacks, and the atmosphere shifted. "It's time," Lila whispered, pulling out a sparkly black dress so short it caught the light from the street lamps. Emma grabbed another just like it, along with a pair of platform heels. They giggled like co-conspirators. "Nobody suspected a thing," Emma said, opening a makeup case. In the rearview mirror, Grace watched Lila apply bright red lipstick while Emma added dark eyeshadow, her lashes thick with mascara. They were transforming right there in the back seat, from modest high schoolers to girls ready for a wild night out. "My mom thinks I'm at your house studying chemistry," said Lila, adjusting her dress. "Told her we were doing a group project." "Same here," Emma replied, slipping on the heels. "My dad's working a late shift. He won't check. I'm good." She texted quickly, her long nails tapping. "Jake's already there. Said it's lit, lights, music, everything." Grace tightened her grip on the wheel, her heart uneasy. She knew this kind of plan, teenagers lying to their parents, sneaking off to parties. Her daughter Lisa had done the same, leaving Grace up all night, stomach in knots. Now, the voices of Lila and Emma stirred a blend of nostalgia and alarm. They chatted nonstop, planning outfits. "This dress is going to slay." Flirting, "Wait, is Ryan single?" And logistics, "We'll be back before 2. They mentioned a group chat and a place called The Warehouse, a name that made Grace shiver. The industrial park loomed ahead, a maze of rusted fences and crumbling buildings. Willow Creek was no longer the factory town it once was. Now, those warehouses hosted underground raves. Grace's headlights lit up graffiti-covered walls, one tagged with "Live Fast" in red. The GPS dinged, destination reached. A gravel lot stretched before a massive warehouse, its dark windows pulsing with neon light. A deep bass thumped inside, muffled but steady. Lila and Emma stashed their backpacks, the glitter of their dresses catching the light. "Thanks, ma'am," Lila called, already striding across the lot with confidence. Emma followed, heels clicking on the gravel, her phone lighting her face. Grace watched them disappear through a side door, swallowed by the warehouse's darkness. She sat there, engine humming. Something felt wrong. The lot was littered with beer cans, cigarette butts, and shadows that moved too fast. She thought of Lisa at 16, stubborn and reckless, and how she'd once found her passed out at a party, mascara smeared. The memory hit hard. Without hesitating, Grace shifted into reverse. She couldn't leave them there. She drove back to Maple Grove, her heart racing, the 15-minute trip a blur of streetlights and swirling thoughts. She parked in front of Building C and took a deep breath, her hands trembling. She was just an Uber driver. This wasn't her business. But the image of those girls, so young and blind to danger, haunted her. The intercom glowed at the entrance. Grace found T. Harper beside apartment 304, the name on the Uber account. She pressed the button, the cold night biting her fingers. A man's voice answered, gruff. "Who is it?" "I'm Grace, the Uber driver who just dropped off your daughter, Emma, and her friend Lila," she said, voice steady but tinged with urgency. "I need to speak with you. It's important." "Uber driver?" Tom Harper's voice dripped with disdain. "What do you want?" "I'm busy." Grace swallowed her nerves, her chest tight. "I overheard them in the car. They lied to you and Lila's mom. Said they were studying, but they went to a party in an abandoned warehouse in the industrial district. It's not safe, Mr. Harper. You need to know." Silence. Then a dry laugh. "You're telling me my daughter's at a rave because of something you overheard in the back seat? Look, lady, you're just a driver. Don't play detective with my family." The words hit like a slap. Grace felt her face flush, but anger made her speak up. "I know what I heard. They were changing in my car, putting on dresses, makeup, heels, all hidden in their backpacks so you wouldn't suspect a thing. They planned it all, laughing about fooling you. I'm a mother too. I know how this goes. That warehouse is no place for them." "You don't know anything about my daughter," Tom snapped. "Emma's at Lila's house, studying. Stop making things up and do your job." Grace slammed her hand against the intercom, the sound echoing into the night. "Call Lila's mom. Check. If I'm wrong, I'll leave. But if I'm right, your daughter is in danger, and you'll regret not listening." There was a long pause, the silence heavy. Then Tom's voice returned, less certain. "Fine. Stay there." A few minutes later, he came to the entrance. A man in his mid-40s, broad-shouldered, flannel shirt, face pale. "I called Karen, Lila's mom," he said, voice hoarse. "Neither of them is where they said they'd be. Tried calling them, no answer." He looked at Grace, the disdain replaced by panic. "Where's this warehouse?" "Industrial Park," Grace answered, already opening the car door. "I'll take you." Tom climbed into the passenger seat, his movements sharp, keys jingling in his hands. Grace hit the gas. The night seemed to swallow them. The street lights dimmer, the air heavier. Her mind raced. Had she done enough? What would they find in that warehouse? And why, deep down, did she feel like this night was about to change everything? Help me reach 500 subscribers and take our message even further. If you're a woman who believes in her power to transform and wants to see more stories of courage and overcoming challenges, subscribe to the channel. Grace's Toyota Camry sliced through the darkness of Willow Creek, headlights sweeping over the empty streets of the industrial park. Inside the car, the silence was heavy, broken only by the nervous jingle of keys in Tom's hands. Grace kept her eyes on the road, but her mind replayed the image of Lila and Emma disappearing into the warehouse, their shiny black dresses like a warning she couldn't ignore. The tension of that night grew. With every mile, Tom, in the passenger seat, stared out the window, his face rigid. After a long silence, he spoke, voice low and rough. "I'm sorry, Grace, for what I said over the intercom. I was a jerk. You were trying to help, and I treated you like you were nothing, like just another driver." Grace glanced at him, surprised by the sincerity. "It's okay," she said, though his words still stung. "When we're scared, we sometimes take it out on the people nearby." He shook his head, rubbing his face with both hands. "It's more than that. I failed Emma. Ever since her mom and I started having problems, she's been different, closed off, lost. I work night shifts at the plant, come home exhausted, no energy to sit and listen. I thought she was just being a teenager, that it would pass. But now," he stopped, voice cracking. "What if she's mixed up in something dangerous? What if I don't make it in time?" Grace felt a pang in her chest. Tom's words touched wounds of her own. "My kids don't reach out much either," she confessed, her voice soft but heavy with longing. "Mark and Lisa, they moved on, built their own lives. I see my grandkids through a screen, but it's like I'm a stranger. I think I pulled away, so I wouldn't be a burden, but it still hurts. I know what it feels like to lose the thread that connects you to the people you love." Tom turned to her, eyes glistening with a mix of fear and empathy. "You didn't have to come back, Grace. You could have gone home, left this behind. Why are you doing this?" She hesitated, fingers tight on the steering wheel. "Because I've seen my daughter in places like this. Found her passed out at a party when she was 16, mascara running down her face. I couldn't protect her from everything, but I couldn't leave those girls there, not after what I saw." Her voice trembled, but she lifted her chin. "You're going to find Emma, Tom, and she'll know you came for her." He nodded, swallowing hard, but the fear was still there, rising. What if it's too late? What if there's something really wrong going on in there? People who mean harm? Grace didn't answer, because the same fear was clawing at her. The warehouse appeared ahead, a giant shadow against the moonless sky. The gravel parking lot was fuller now, cars parked haphazardly, beer cans glinting under dim streetlights. The bass of the music pulsed louder, more urgent. Grace pulled up a few yards from the side entrance, heart racing. Tom opened the door, hesitating. "Are you coming with me?" "I'll stay here," Grace said, her voice steady, eyes locked on the warehouse. "I'll watch the street. If I need to, I'll scream or call the cops." "Go, Tom. Find them." He took a deep breath, nodded, and ran for the side door, swallowed by the darkness. Grace turned off the engine, and the deep beat of the music filled the car. She adjusted her glasses, senses alert, scanning the lot. The street buzzed, young people laughing loudly, some stumbling, bottles in hand. But something darker lingered. A group of older men, maybe in their 30s or 40s, loitered near a black car with tinted windows. They didn't mix with the teens. Their faces were hard, eyes watchful. One handed a small backpack to another in a quick, almost stealthy motion. Grace felt a chill. This wasn't just a party. Inside the warehouse, Tom was swallowed by chaos, strobe lights flashing, thick smoke swirling. The air reeked of sweat, beer, and something sickly sweet he couldn't place. Electronic music thundered, pounding in his chest as bodies moved in waves, colliding. He pushed through, eyes scanning frantically. Girls in glittery dresses spun in circles. Boys in caps shouted. Plastic cups littered the sticky floor. In the corners, Older men like those outside roamed, offering bottles or small vials to teens who looked drunk or dazed. Tom's stomach turned. "Emma! Lila!" he shouted, his voice drowned by the beat. No response. A girl with pink hair bumped into him, laughing, her eyes glassy. He caught her before she fell, but she slipped away into the crowd. Then he spotted a metal staircase leading to a mezzanine with flashing red lights. Maybe they were up there. He rushed up, fear tightening his throat. Outside, Grace kept her eyes on the parking lot, phone in hand, finger hovering over 911. The older men's presence unsettled her, but something else caught her attention. Across the street, under a twisted tree's shadow, a girl was stumbling, held up by a tall man, far too old to be there. She wore a black dress like Lila and Emma's, but the hem was torn. The man tugged her by the arm, murmuring something, and the girl shook her head, trying to pull away, her movements sluggish like she was drugged. Grace held her breath. It wasn't Lila or Emma, but it could have been. The man glanced around, checking if anyone saw, then started dragging her toward an alley beside the warehouse. Grace felt her blood go cold. She opened the car door, but froze, heart in her throat. She was just a 58-year-old woman, alone, no match for someone like him. But the image of the girl, so fragile, burned in her mind. She grabbed her phone, fingers trembling, and started typing. She dialed 911 and whispered, "Emergency at the industrial park, warehouse on Old Mill Road. A girl's in danger in an alley. Suspicious men. Please hurry." A sharp scream pierced the night, coming from the alley, a sound of pure desperation. Grace froze, eyes wide. At that moment, a shadow darted across the lot, someone carrying something that glinted under the streetlight. A knife? A bottle? She couldn't tell. The sound of distant sirens started to rise, still far away. Grace looked toward the warehouse entrance where Tom had disappeared, then to the alley where the girl might be in danger. What was really happening here? And had Tom found the girls before they did something they'd regret? Inside the warehouse, Tom climbed the metal stairs to the mezzanine, his body tense, sweat dripping. Red lights flashed, casting twisted shadows over the crowd below. The air was thick with smoke, sweat, and a sickly sweet scent that made him gag. On the mezzanine, teens were packed onto torn-up couches, some laughing loudly, others staring blankly, passing cups and little bottles between them. Tom shouted, "Emma! Lila!" His voice barely cut through the thunder of the electronic music. Then he saw her, Lila, in a sparkly black dress, leaning against the railing, laughing as an older man with tattoos up his neck offered her a shiny silver flask. She was swaying, eyes glazed, red lipstick smudged. Tom rushed over, shoving the man hard. "Get away from her," he yelled, heart pounding in his throat. The man raised his hands, laughing. "Relax, man. Just talking." But his eyes were cold, predatory. Tom ignored him and gripped Lila's shoulders. "Lila, look at me. Where's Emma?" She blinked, slowly, voice slurred. "Emma?" She was dancing, I think, downstairs. She pointed vaguely toward the dance floor and nearly fell over. Tom caught her, panic rising. What had she taken? He led her to the stairs, half carrying her, the metal steps creaking under their weight. Lila giggled at something that made no sense, and Tom felt a knot tighten in his chest. He had to get her out and find Emma. Now, outside, Grace stared into the alley. The scream had stopped, leaving a silence even worse. She opened her car door, cold air biting her hands, but hesitated. She was a 58-year-old woman, not a vigilant, but the image of that girl, staggering in a torn dress, burned in her mind. Then she saw something in the parking lot. Two men from the group she had noticed earlier, the ones with the backpack, were walking quickly toward the alley, speaking in hushed tones. One of them had something at his waist. A gun? A belt? Grace didn't know, but fear prickled in her spine. At that moment, Tom appeared at the warehouse entrance, carrying Lila, who could barely stand. Grace ran to them, relief flooding her, mixed with dread. "Tom, is she okay?" "I don't know," he panted, laying Lila on the back seat. "I found her upstairs with some sketchy guy. She's out of it. I think she took something. Emma's still inside." His eyes were wide, his face pale. "Grace, I have to go back." "Go," she said, already climbing into the driver's seat. "I've got Lila. I called the police. They're on their way." Tom nodded and ran back into the warehouse, vanishing into the dark. Grace checked on Lila, who was mumbling incoherently, her face slick with sweat. She grabbed a water bottle from the glove compartment and wet a napkin, gently wiping the girl's face. "It's okay, sweetheart. You're going to be all right," she whispered, though she wasn't sure herself. The sirens were louder now, but still distant. She looked toward the alley, where the two men had disappeared, and her stomach twisted. Then something new, flashing light like a phone hitting the ground. A second scream, weaker. Then the sound of fast footsteps. Grace shouted toward the alley, her voice shaking. "The police are coming. Whatever you're doing, you're going to jail." She locked the car doors, heart racing. Inside the warehouse, Tom pushed through the crowd on the dance floor, bodies slamming into him. The music was deafening, the air suffocating. He kept shouting Emma's name, ignoring stares, some curious, some threatening. In the corners, he spotted more older men prowling like predators, offering bottles and little flasks. One tried to block him. Tom shoved past, adrenaline surging. Then, near the stage, he saw her. Emma, wearing a black dress, dancing alone, arms loose, face glistening with sweat. A man in his 30s stood beside her, speaking low, one hand on her shoulder, the other holding a drink. "Emma." Tom ran, shoving the man aside. "Get your hands off my daughter." Emma blinked, confused, but didn't resist when he pulled her back. "Dad?" "What? How are you here?" Her voice was slow, her eyes glassy. "Come with me now." Tom ordered, fear and fury boiling in his chest. The man laughed, but didn't follow. He disappeared into the crowd. Tom held Emma tightly as she stumbled in her heels, guiding her to the exit. By the time they reached the parking lot, sirens were close. Red and blue lights flickered in the distance. Grace opened the car door when she saw them. "Thank God," she cried, helping Tom get Emma into the back seat beside Lila, who was now asleep, mumbling. "Are they okay?" "I don't know," Tom said breathlessly. "They both seem altered. We need help." He looked at Grace, eyes filled with guilt and gratitude. "You were right, Grace. If it weren't for you." Before she could respond, a loud bang came from the alley, followed by a flash, like something exploded or caught fire. Screams broke out. Teens poured out of the warehouse, some stumbling, others laughing hysterically. The two men Grace had seen earlier ran from the alley. One was limping, the other yelling something she couldn't understand. Then a figure emerged behind them. The girl in the torn dress. She was holding a piece of wood, her face streaked with tears, but fierce with determination. She stumbled onto the street and collapsed to her knees. Grace didn't hesitate. She ran to her, ignoring the chaos. "Are you okay?" she asked, helping her up. The girl nodded, gasping. "They tried, but I fought," she said, voice trembling. Then she grabbed Grace's hand, clutching it tightly. "You saw. You didn't look away." Grace felt warmth in her chest, but before she could speak, the sirens exploded into the parking lot. Police cars swarmed the scene, officers rushing toward the warehouse and alley, while paramedics surrounded Grace's car. A local news reporter appeared with a microphone and camera, interviewing an officer. We're arresting multiple individuals suspected of distributing illegal substances, the officer said as men from the alley and others from the warehouse were handcuffed. The reporter, a young woman with a notepad, approached Tom, who was explaining the girl's condition to the paramedics. I heard an Uber driver called it in. Was it her? Tom pointed to Grace, who was helping the girl from the alley sit beside the paramedics. It was her, Grace. She heard the girls planning something, came back to warn me, and called the cops. She saved my daughter. And her friend. Maybe more. The reporter approached Grace, holding out the microphone. Ma'am, is your name Grace? Can you tell us what happened? Grace, exhausted, hesitated, but the girl from the alley squeezed her hand again, encouraging her. I just did what felt right. Grace said, her voice shaky. I saw something wrong, and I couldn't just walk away. Paramedics took Lila, Emma, and the alley girl into the ambulance, assuring they'd be okay after evaluation. Tom, still holding Emma's hand, looked at Grace with tears in his eyes. You changed everything, Grace. I'll never forget this. Then his face hardened as he looked at the girls. When they're better, they're going to explain all this. They lied, put themselves in danger, and there will be consequences. After the police cleared the scene, Grace drove Tom, Emma, and Lila back to Tom's apartment at Maple Grove. The ride was quiet, broken only by Emma's murmurs and Tom's soft, relieved sobs. At the door, Tom took Grace's hand. If you ever need anything, call me. You're more than just a driver. You're a hero. Back at her apartment, the night felt different, lighter. Grace sat on the couch with a cup of tea and turned on the TV. Uber driver helps expose a legal substance ring in Willow Creek. Her name, Grace Thompson, flashed on the screen with a grainy photo from the reporter. A lump rose in her throat. She felt something she hadn't in years, pride in herself. Her phone buzzed. A message from Mark. Mom, I saw you on TV. Are you okay? What happened? Call me. Then one from Lisa. Mom, I'm shocked. You saved those girls? I always knew you were amazing. I'm sorry I haven't called. Can we talk tomorrow? Grace read both messages, tears rolling down her cheeks, but a smile forming. For the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. That night, by choosing not to look away, by facing danger head-on, Grace, a 58-year-old woman who had once felt forgotten, not only saved Lila, Emma, and the girl from the alley, she rekindled her bond with her children and rediscovered a purpose she thought she'd lost forever. As she looked out the window at the glowing lights of Willow Creek, Grace knew deep down her story finally mattered. If you enjoyed this, give it a like and subscribe to receive more inspiring and emotional stories like this one. Together, we can uplift and empower each other. Leave a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Thank you for watching.